Welcome back to the. And she's a young writer and a founder of a new magazine, and she's got a big idea. Adrienne is in the early stages of launching an online magazine, aimed at helping teens understand art, music, and culture beyond what social media algorithms feed them. Instead of popularity performance, she's more interested in the meaning behind why teens follow the trends, and her curiosity is shining a light on the why. Adrienne believes that constant performative living fuels many of the issues that young people face today, from mental health struggles to a growing inability to understand one another honestly and truthfully. Through her writing and upcoming magazine launch, she hopes to introduce teens to broader perspectives, deeper meaning in art, and ideas that don't always get amplified in mainstream pop culture, all to help raise a more thoughtful, curious, and well rounded next generation. Adrienne covers a wide range of topics from Camus and the culture, a 20th century writer's take on modern problems, to topics like satanic imagery and rap. Big ideas and thoughtful writing, like Adrienne's, are precisely how some of the most important writers and magazines in history began. Adrienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. What a great project that you're working on, and I've been able to read some of the articles that you've written, and I'm so intrigued by the whole idea. So, congratulations on the magazine.
Thank you.
What sparked your idea
That is a
originally?
really, really good question. Yeah, so I've always been a creative person. I've always really been a person to question things, but also just to have new ideas. And I really wanted to do something just creative. And I would just, honestly, I thought about a lot of things. And then finally, when I like came to the idea of like creating a magazine, I was like, this just feels right. Like this, I really like this idea. And so that's why I'm doing it.
That's great. What did you find when you researched trend culture? What
Yeah,
was most surprising to you that during your research for that article?
I think it's really interesting how trend culture works because the way I see it and the way many others do is essentially it's really just society and how we view things and judge things really just on a bigger scale. I think a lot of people don't see that because in your class, in your school, in your community, you have things that are so acceptable or liked. And so you start to behave in a way and act in a way and do those sorts of things that are liked and well received. And then with
Hmm.
social media, you're seeing that happen, but in a much faster pace, like really just happening very quickly. And that's what's kind of overwhelming about it. But also, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's something that's really just new and different, but it's really not. It's really these old principles and just old reflection, I guess, of human nature. Just
Yeah, it's like the old thing, the old follow the leader or go with the crowd or go with the flow. It's that kind of thing, right? It's like everybody's doing it, so why shouldn't I? And it must be cool if everybody's doing it. Why is right now the right time for Title Magazine, your magazine?
yeah, it's a good question. I think we're really social media is relatively new in the sense we see it today, like with the apps and everything. I mean, the internet is relatively new. And I think we're really starting to see awareness around the harmful effects of social media or trend culture, which we have been aware. There have been studies out there, but I feel like it's really starting to become like I feel like kids or and teens are really starting to become aware of how trend culture works. So we're starting to see past some the facade of what it is. And I think that's why it's a good time to really use that opportunity or that questioning of what everybody's doing to create something like this.
Well, that's so smart, and you're so smart, and your peers, your friends, it sounds like are very smart because it feels like the adults are going with this trend culture mentality as far as social media, and it feels like they're more stuck on it than the younger generation right now. And if I'm hearing you right, it sounds to me and what I've seen is that you're questioning it a bit more. We're not suckers. We can't be led down every the path that you want, the algorithm wants. It feels like you guys are questioning that, which is exactly what youth should be doing, more so than the adults. And the adults, I just feel like are complaining, uh, but they're not doing anything about it. Um, but you still live in this world, even I think at your age, and all of us do, in this trend culture where there's a lot of pressure, and teenagers. When you're a teenager, there's always a lot of pressure on being cool and fitting in and all that stuff. But can you describe to me right now for you and your friends the pressure that teens feel to perform to maintain their online identity? Is it still as strong as ever? Is it starting to lose a little bit of steam? What's your perspective on that right now?
Obviously, I can't speak for everybody, but in the people, like my friends, the people around me, honestly, I feel like, especially for the people that I'm really close with, it's getting to a point where we honestly don't really care. We kind of been through that in a way. We've been in the place where you're trying to do all the things. Oh, like this is the new thing that we're all getting, and you kind of just get over it. Like you're really like, why am I doing this? Like
Mm-hmm.
why do I need like the hot new water bottle of the year? Like why do I
Yeah.
need this? Like, and so I think me and my peers, we've honestly just gotten over that, and like I feel like when you get over that, social media really just becomes it's like a really nice thing that you can just like discover stuff on or like just be entertained with. Like it's really just like so much more relaxing. I feel like when you
Yeah.
don't feel pressure to do anything or like to buy anything, have to be anything, and I feel like it's really nice. Yeah.
That's good. I think that's a healthy way to look at it. It's another form of entertainment, right? I mean, it's like you can choose a book, you can choose to stream, you can choose to go to the movies, you can choose to look at ads or pictures of your friends or goofy videos, but you don't have to run through a wall, because it's the hot trend of the week. So you're basically, if I'm hearing you right, you specifically, you're questioning algorithms. Um, do you feel like you're the minority, or are there other teens that are also with the mindset that you have? They're waking up and they're questioning their feeds.
Yeah, I think there are lots of teens doing that because I feel like it's really, I see this a lot on social media where people will be like, there's going to be a big campaign, like an influencer doing something. And a lot of people are just gonna be like, why is this happening? Like, why are we doing this? Honestly, and it's really nice just to see that, just to know, yeah, people are not falling for whatever this is. Because, yeah,
Not that herd mentality. They're not falling for it. Can you define for me what is constant performative living?
yeah, again, humans are social creatures. Like, obviously, you like embarrassment is kind of built around this idea you do things that are socially acceptable so then you don't have to feel embarrassed, and embarrassment is supposed to like keep you safe by making sure that you do everything that is socially acceptable wherever you are. And I feel like performative living is really this fear of embarrassment or humiliation where you're just doing all these things, not because necessarily you want to do that, but just because other people are doing it and you want to do it so you don't look like the odd one out, like you don't look weird for not doing it. And I really hate that. I really hate that people feel like they have to be pressured just to do something they don't really want to do. I just hate that
Mm-hmm.
so much. I've seen this a lot with people around me in my classes. There will be girls and stuff who will get picked on or just get excluded just for not doing the things that that group wants to do or that, and
Mm-hmm.
it really just breaks my heart. I hate that people feel like they have to do something to fit in somewhere because like really if you have to be performative to fit in, then the people you're around don't actually like you. They don't like you for who you are. And that really hurts me that people are really living or reliving that, having to perform to be accepted. That just really hurts.
You're wise beyond your years, aren't you? Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at that. I like that perspective that embarrassment is it's almost a, you're saying like like fear. You, you don't want to be embarrassed, so you go along, or, fear is also used that way, I think, in our culture a lot to, keep everybody a little bit scared and they stay in line. And that's, yeah, I agree with you. It's just a horrible way to live your life. Is for some of these reasons that you're discussing, is that another part of why you want to launch this magazine? You think you will address and bring up some of these topics that we're talking about right now, and topics that maybe others know but are afraid to discuss?
Absolutely. I think one of my main goals is not only just to give people these ideas or give my opinions. It's not to preach to people, it's really to broaden young people's perspectives. There's really so much out there, and I really want young people to realize that. Like, there's there's so much out there other than what you're living right now. Like, I hate that people feel like they're confined to have to do these specific things or like confined to have to live this specific way. Like, there's really just so much out there. Like,
Mm-hmm. Do you feel your friends, that that are around you, are suffering from an inability, excuse me, to understand one another right now? What are the conversations like? How is there a divide? Like there's a divide in the country and a lot of divides in the world right now, or among your peers, or do you think you understand each other and what you're going through
I
collectively?
wouldn't say among my peers, but I definitely do see it around me. Not necessarily people who are really close to me, but just people around me in general. And it's in scenarios where like you're a bystander over like argument or something, and sometimes you see two people really like they're not even sometimes they're not even disagreeing. They really just agree on the same thing, but they either have just different phrasing for it or they see the details differently. And it's so frustrating to sit there and be like, y'all don't even disagree. Why are you fighting?
Hmm.
Like, and there was this study done, I believe, and it was where they took like left wing problems or ideas and put them in right wing terminology, and they did the same thing for right wing problems or ideas, and they gave them to the other groups, and they found that the other groups would agree with them. Like, I
It's
think, yeah, it's
interesting.
just so interesting. We see so much hate and tribalism, but y'all really do agree on a lot of things. It's frustrating that people can't see that.
It really is tribalism, isn't it? It's. I think that you make a decision based on your experience, and then and friends that believe the same. It's so tribal. Is a political tribalism a thing in your school and your with your friends? Oh,
I mean, I'm not gonna say with my friends because I feel like me and my friends have pretty like aligned beliefs, but definitely see it a little bit in my school and just in my surroundings, like places you go, you really just like see that. And again, especially when you see sometimes like the two different like groups will just have the same problems or the same issues, but they like either can't agree on the way to solve it or just have disagreements with the details. It's just so frustrating to see that.
do you mediate among friends or parents or groups? Do you end up? These are such insightful views that you have. Do you find yourself involved in having common sense conversations with people that you encounter like this? And if
Sometimes I
so, how
do.
are you received? You know.
Yeah, especially with people that I'm friends with or if I'm close to somebody, I'll definitely try to do that a little bit. But if it's a person or a group of people that either I don't know really well or I'm not really involved with, I usually don't do that just because I know it's either not going to be well received or just it's not the right time or place to do that. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
a thing for me to do. But when I do it with my friends, I think it's received pretty well because really just the people close to me, I think we're all really open minded. And so we're really willing to hear other perspectives and other ideas. And I think that's something I really like about the people around me.
And do you have hope and faith that your message and your perspective will grow, this movement will grow, that it will spread, and that there will be more people like you that in your generation that are more tolerant, more open to ideas?
100%. I think these people already exist. I know young people like me are out there. I think it's really about just finding all of them and I guess bringing all of them together. That's really what I want to do.
Well, that's why the magazine that you're launching is such a great idea, because throughout history, ideas were spread through print, through books, through art into culture, right? I mean, it's a way that you can take a magazine that's filled with these ideas and explores them and gives room to everybody. And you can be alone. You can think, how do I feel about what I just read? And you know what? That's a good opinion. I like that one, and then it spreads. So hearing you talk about the algorithms and apps, and maybe they're not at maybe these big social media companies don't have quite the hold on all of you of your age, your generation, that they think that they do, that you guys are smarter than that. And you're getting a little bit bored maybe by it. What's next? Where do you think this is all going to go? Do you think social media is going to continue the way it is, and the apps are going to continue to bring curious people to them that follow along and find their own algorithm, and that's their whole world? Or do you think something bigger is about to happen? And how do you see social media transforming or changing in the future?
I think that social media will continue to exist, especially in the next, 5, 10 years. I think it's definitely going to still be a thing. But I think, honestly, with all the exposure, like young people, we have a generation of young people that have grown up on social media, have grown up on the internet, have grown up online. And I feel like we're just going to see a different usage of the platforms. Like, I feel like a lot of young people really starting to like get over really being hooked on the trends and that kind of stuff. A lot of people are really understanding that one, it's not realistic, but two, just like doesn't give you any value, doesn't really serve you in any way. So there's no reason to like really just do it to perform.
It's almost like eating junk food, isn't it? You may see a lot, you may consume, but you don't really feel better afterwards. In your magazine title, how will you break down complex philosophical concepts through relevant art?
Mm. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of philosophical ideas, the only places they exist are in either in the philosopher's work or really just difficult pieces of literature, the pieces of literature that are really hard to understand. And so I think just really stating, explaining those ideas in simpler words or just easier ways is going to make it a lot more accessible. But also, I think relevant art is art in general. I love art, and I think it's a really great way to explain these ideas because you see a lot of these ideas in art.
Mm-hmm. You explore them in some of your articles that I've read. And one of the things that I read that you wrote, you said that perform popularity leads to nearly every major issue we face as a society. What did you mean by that?
I feel like what that causes is it gets to a point where you're not thinking for yourself anymore. And I'm not saying that all teens are not thinking for themselves anymore. We have no consciousness. I don't think that's true at all. But I think when you really start to get bought into that, you really start trying to do all the popular things and really just live that, it really does limit your own expression or creativity, I guess. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what I meant by that is this performing what I mean by performing popularity is you're doing these things to be popular. It's not because you want to do them. You're not buying the water bottle of the year because you really want that water bottle. You're so excited about all its new features. Like, no, you're not. You're just doing that because everyone else is doing it. And
Like that Starbucks honey bear.
yeah,
Um, I don't know if that's a water bottle. Yeah, that makes sense. It really makes sense. Um, I wanted to discuss a couple of your articles in your magazine that you sent me. Um, so, uh, uh, if I can ask this of you as an author, would you mind reading just a paragraph or so from one of your articles?
yes, of course.
I wrote it
I
down.
think it is a reflection on the.
Oh, I
Hold on.
found it.
Oh,
A reflection on the duality and deeper meaning of rap music.
okay. So this one is. I'm just gonna read a little bit from it, but this one is. It's just a little article on something I noticed in a music video that I thought was really interesting, and I think it helps explain the title or, the duality and deeper meaning of rap music. So this excerpt is, I think it's really incredible. I know Jeremiah has read it, and I'm going to read it out to y'all. This one is from Osama Sun, which is one of my favorite rappers of all time. When the Spotify app came out, I was 0.3%, like top 0.3% of listeners worldwide. So, really big.
You submitted the music that we play throughout the show. So there are two songs by your artist here that you're mentioning.
Yes. So, y'all hear some of that. I really love him, and also I really love this quotation he has. And so, I'm going to read out to y'all. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to reduce the suffering that we are forced to deal with as we were born into this hell of a place called Earth. I think it's just incredible because, one, I think that quotation itself really just is really deep, it's very profound. And I think that's something a lot of people would not expect from him, especially if you are familiar with his music or you listen to it. And so let me read a little bit more of this article. So I started with that quotation, and then after that, I said, this excerpt was written by one of the greatest thinkers of the modern era, the mumble rapping Osama Sun. The song Popstar, which features this quote as a visual in the music video, follows the same formula as other Osama Sun typical tracks. A Draco FMB and lyrics that discuss drugs, flexing, money, guns, cars, and getting lots of girls. It almost doesn't make sense. How can a degenerate rapper like Osama Sun have such a profound takeaway on life? And if he does have such incredible insights like these, why do people hate on him so much? And why do they hate his opinion so much? Do they hate him because of how he raps, or his performances, or where he's from, or his race? Probably, but I think there's something bigger than that. I think there's a reason he gets clowned on the most when he opens up about himself. I think it's something that people hate more than all the things that I listed. His honesty reminds them of their own problems, and this reflects some of the principles of existentialist belief of bad faith, which is when you use social norms or your circumstances as an excuse to avoid responsibility, dealing with your problems and short term guilt. And his earlier statement also aligns with some of the parts of existential philosophies, like his reference to the inherent pain of living.
Thank you for reading that. So that was an excerpt by Adrienne Laswell, the author of A Reflection on the Duality and the Deeper Meaning of Rap Music. Thank you, Adrienne.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I wanted to dive deeper into a few other articles. Camus and the Culture, a 20th century writer's take on modern problems. So I'm just assuming that Camus and the Culture, 20th century writer's take on modern problems refers to the ideas of Albert Camus and how his philosophy still applies to contemporary life. Do I have that right? Am I on the right track?
Yes.
Tell
Yes.
us who Albert Camus was.
So he was a philosopher, and he pioneered the idea of absurdism, which comes from the existential, not revolution, but the existential, like, I guess, period of philosophy, and it is similar to existentialism, but it's a little different. So I'm just gonna try to explain it the best I can simply for y'all. Existentialism is the idea that there is no real inherent meaning to life, but you can make meaning, you can give life meaning through freedom and your actions. And so you therefore give life meaning. Then absurdism, which is Camus' philosoph- philosophy, is this idea that there is no meaning, but you can still can rebel against life's meaninglessness by still enjoying it and making decisions and living. And there's so much great like writing he did on that, and especially some of his stuff with the myth of Sisyphus and all the stranger, all of that, really incredible. And I think what he said there is really interesting because a lot of people, a lot of young people especially, really struggle with like meaning in life. Like, is there like is there meaning? What would that look like? Like, what is that? And I think Camus really says you don't need meaning to exist or enjoy your life. Like, you really don't need that. Like, life is inherently painful, it's frustrating, and he says that yes, it is all those things, but also you can still enjoy things, like you can still be happy. He has an excerpt, I believe, where he says you can have to imagine Sisyphus being happy because he's condemned to this eternal punishment of pushing this rock up this mountain, then it rolls down every single day, and he has to do it over and over and over again. You have to imagine that he's happy doing that, that he's found purpose in just rolling this rock up this mountain. And I think that's a really profound takeaway, and I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people would really relate to that, would feel that life is meaningless, but really don't know what to do after that. And I think Camus is really just can still enjoy life and
Mhm.
just live without a real meaning. You don't need that to live.
Well, I got to say about the rock moving. When I was a kid, my mom had piles of rock in her garden. And I mean, they were 2 or 3 feet high. And on the weekend, she would make me go out and move these rock piles from one end of the garden to the other. And I hated it. So I moved rock and I was not happy. But maybe Camus found a different, he was more enlightened than I was. But moving rock isn't fun. What about Camus' writing most speaks to you, Adrienne?
Really, just this idea that meaninglessness is not the end.
Okay.
You don't have to just struggle the rest of your life being, oh, what I'm doing is pointless. I'm gonna die anyway. You can really just enjoy your life and live. And what absurdism
Mm-hmm.
comes from, you can live in an absurd way. He also describes the conflict between what people want, what you want, versus what the universe gives you. You want answers, you want purpose, you want meaning, but you don't really get that. You don't really, there's no manual, there is no instructions, and you kind of just have to live. And I think he really describes that gap as being absurd because it does feel absurd. It is absurd.
And that helps you, that understanding?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
does. It
it's
does.
clear. Um, do you feel the tension between that need for meaning and a world that doesn't provide really clear answers? Do you feel that tension? Or have you adopted Camus' philosophy on this and been able to really, really take a hold of it and see life differently the way you describe?
Yeah, I think definitely I've struggled with that in the past, especially, when you're a young person. You gotta go to school, you gotta do all this stuff, like my GPA, that's just a number on a piece of paper. Like, what am I doing with my life? I feel like we all have had those like questions or issues or frustrations. I kind of adopted that without knowing that I was adopting that. I didn't know who Camus was when I realized what I'm doing right now is a little stupid, is not meaningful. Like, grades are not meaningful to me. I don't really find great purpose in this, but I can still go to school. I can still get good grades. I can still enjoy my life while doing that. I don't have to sit here and just suffer through this. It doesn't have to be terrible. I can still do things and have fun. That's kind of, I guess, like a really simple way of saying like what Camus was trying to say.
Hmm. How did you discover Camus?
That is a really good question. I was reading through some scientific articles, and the scientific articles I was reading through actually, they were just some odd ones I had found. For example, I found this scientific article on the development of rap music, and I was like, this is crazy. Scientific article on this, but I read it and it was really, really interesting. And then I found an article on Camus, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I really like this guy's theory, and so I kind of looked more into him, and I really fell in love with that. So
Hmm. Yeah. Do you let you read a lot? It sounds like you're
yeah,
curious.
I do like to
Yeah.
read.
Yeah. Well, Camus, another thing I read about him through your article, he didn't believe in rebellion, that rebellion had to be real loud or destructive. And sometimes rebellion is just choosing honesty, creativity, or moral clarity. Can writing art or writing critically about culture be a form of rebellion for young people today? Do you believe?
Honestly, yes, I think it can be a form of rebellion. I think it's in young people's nature, I guess, just to want to rebel. I think this thing is pretty accepted. Oh, like young people these days, get up to no good, stuff like that. And I think rebellion is not just doing things, just again, as you said, real loud and destructive. It really can just be going against either what's happening around you or what's expected of you in really subtle ways. It doesn't have to be big or loud. And yes, so I definitely think that
Yeah.
just doing something different, honestly, is a form of rebellion.
And so, do you feel like launching Title Magazine, your magazine, is rebellious?
Yeah, I think, again, as I said, doing anything different is rebellious. And I think really just sharing my opinions, sharing criticism on art and philosophy in a unique way is, in a sense, rebellion.
Do you know Camus pretty well? Do you feel like you have a good understanding of him?
Yeah, I would say I do have a pretty good understanding of him.
Okay, so if Camus were alive today, how do you think he'd view this algorithm-driven culture and the way that it tells people what to care about and what to believe in? What do you think he'd say?
I do not think he'd like it. I've done some studying on Camus and the existentialist movement, and I think not a main principle, but a principle that is implied or also is like, I guess you could say, a side principle is honesty, but not in the sense of like always telling the truth. The honesty of acting like yourself, doing things that you want to do, like the act honesty of being who you are is sort of a principle that's definitely mentioned in existentialist work. And I think because that was a part of what Camus did, he would not agree with conforming just to conform.
Hmm. Yeah. So he was writing nearly a century ago, which is pretty amazing. Yet his ideas keep resurfacing. Why do you think his work still resonates with younger generations who are growing up in a completely different world than he grew up? Why do you think he resonates in his philosophies?
I think he really just said a lot of universal things in his work that can really just are really timeless. Like I think his entire thing about like rebelling against like meaninglessness, that's just a timeless concept, I feel like. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
thing people have struggled with just throughout like existence, throughout, the existence of humanity. And I feel like we've seen different ways of handling that or different like ways of accepting that or not accepting that. And I think it's really just a really timeless concept he was exploring.
Okay, well, satanic imagery in modern rap. That's the next article I wanted to talk about. Um, And it seems to be a topic that you've covered a couple times from different angles. What initially made you curious about satanic or dark imagery in rap? And was there like a specific album cover or an artist where you thought about it and said, "There's something more going on here. I need to dig in."
Absolutely. So I'm really passionate about all this, but I'm like really passionate about that type of music. That's just what I'm listening to all the time. And so honestly, being in that sort of environment, I guess, listening to that type of music, you do see satanic imagery and you see a lot. It's really become popular, I'd say, in the last 10 years, something like that. Really, just because it, as I kind of said in my article, it's really controversial and it really just like catches your eye. It's really different. And I think it allows the artist to kind of like label what they're doing is different or edgy or more aligned with other people in that genre.
Why did in your article, if I remember correctly, you say that it started like in the early 80s in Memphis. Why did it, was that some sort of its origin there where you traced it back to where it first started appearing on
Yes,
album covers?
you see a lot of satanic imagery and satanic references in Memphis rap during that time in the 80s. There's honestly really some crazy stuff. It's a really honestly that's a really complex thing because there were lots of theories on what was happening and if the artists were like, actually Satanists or like, I
Hmm.
think there were some theories on even the artists would like bathe their like CDs in blood or something to like like get more popular or about stuff like that. And so I think that's genuinely like where we see it start.
Well, you're very careful to say in the article you're not claiming these artists are actual Satanists. Why do you think it's important to separate the symbolism from the actual belief when we're talking about imagery like this?
I said that just because I really think it's true. I don't think artists who are using that type of imagery, at least the ones I'm familiar with, and most of them aren't Satanists. I think it really is about just being controversial and being different.
Provocation.
Hmm. Absolutely. Because you see these artists using this imagery in their album covers or whatever, but really in the interviews, outside of that, they really are normal people. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people don't really see that. They want to see that imagery and just dismiss the artist, or make false claims about that. But I don't really don't think that's what it's about.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you because I mean, if you look at rock and roll and in the early '80s, there was the heavy metal, and all those guys, Motley Crue and Dio and Judas Priest and all these big bands, big hair bands. I mean, they were Ozzy Osbourne. They were shocking people. Kiss. They would bite heads off bats, right? They would have satanic pentagrams, but at the end of the day, I think it was more about selling albums and they're also selling to teenagers, and at that age you're exploring ad for you is actually more interesting. Things that you don't want your parents don't want you looking at or listening to becomes what you want to listen to, what you want to look at. So I think that's a big part of it. I think you've got an accurate uh, take on that for sure. I'm curious though, Adrienne, you really have I think a really good outlook on life and so intelligent, and the way that you're taking things apart and looking at them and coming up with your own ideas and your own opinions. I really applaud that. And I think this magazine is just going to be great. Title magazine that you're founding and will be available early next spring in 2026. Are you scared about your life or life in general right now? Are you scared about your future?
Oh, am I scared about my future?
But yeah, I just hear, so much about AI will take your jobs and, kids coming out of college with nowhere to go. And um, does that scare you at all? I mean, being a young person in the next few years entering the job market and building your own life, are you scared for the future, or is that just a media thing right now? Is that just a talking point?
I mean, if I'm really being like truthful, like keeping it 100, like I'm not scared at all. I don't think AI is gonna take my job. I think AI does have incredible capabilities to like do things and help people, but it will never be able to really replace people. Like because again, like AI cannot come up with new ideas. Like it's trained off of material, and that's like essentially what it spits out. Like the material that it's trained on, like is what it can give back to you. So that's why the best AI models are trained off the most materials because they have the most experience in that sense. But it can't
Mhm.
come up with anything new. So I'm really not worried about that. And in terms of jobs and stuff like that, yes, there has people are finding difficulty finding jobs. The job market is not great right now. People are coming out of college not being able to find jobs. My older siblings, they're in college. I know they're a little stressed about that, but I think we're really just going through like a tough time right now, and that's just I think that's kind of like widely accepted. I guess kind of like everyone kind of realizes that we're going through something really difficult here, but I think it's
But
gonna
we
pass.
always adapt, don't we? We always adapt. What's your ultimate goal for the magazine? Like if you dream, what do you dream of? What's success look like to you?
I think success looks like to me just really if I change one person's if I change one person's life by broadening their perspectives or exposing them to something new, I think that's a win for me. I think that's what success is. Like that's really just, I want people to be able to find themselves, and it's not like I'm trying to indoctrinate the young people, with something. Like I'm really not trying to do that. I really just want young people to use what I'm doing as a resource to discover like what they align with, like what they believe in, and that's
Hmm.
what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Um, who is your dream interview? Who would you like to interview at the magazine?
That's a hard one. There's a lot of people I look up to. I mean, they're like dream interview. There's
How
this
about
journalist.
the
I
musician? Go ahead.
musician.
The
Yeah,
rapper.
honestly,
I'm forgetting his name.
Osama-san.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, honestly, that'd be really cool if I got to interview him. That'd be crazy. But also, there's this other journalist. He works for Our Generation Music, which is sort of like a brand that they help promote underground rappers, and I think they're so cool. He works for them. He has his own little show segment. Well, well, well. He's so cool. He's like the coolest person ever. He's really what inspired me to pursue journalism. Even though he does something really different than I do. He doesn't write articles, he's not trying to start a magazine. He has a show where he like interviews people, but he's so cool. I'd love to interview him. That'd be crazy.
Do it. Go after him. Go after him. What are you reading right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I I'm one of those people I start a lot of books and then I can't finish them. So I have started The Prince by Machiavelli. I think it's super interesting. And then also I recently started In the Shadow of Man by Jane Goodall, which
Hmm,
I'm reading. So those are the two I'm working on right now.
very cool. And what do you like to do besides reading, writing, school? What do you like to do when you're not doing those things?
I
How do you
think
live by example and get out there and blaze your own trail? What do you do?
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of a homebody. Like, I don't really be getting out there like that, but I do love. I love nature. I love going outside. Also, I love music. Like, music is a huge part of my life. Always listening to music at school, at home, outside, whatever. Like, music is always on. It's really just a big part of me and who I am. So, yeah.
If you could be the architect and build the perfect day for yourself, what's that perfect day look like? What would you do?
Okay. Perfect day. I wake up 11 a.m. Then probably be lazy for an hour and then eat and then go outside and then come back inside, probably read something, and then eat again, and then read something, and then listen to some music, and probably go to bed.
That
That's probably my
sounds like
dream day.
sounds like a perfect day. Nobody bothering you. I
Yeah.
like it. I
Mhm.
like it. All right. Well, Adrienne Laswell, thank you so much. Adrienne's, if you're just joining us, then you've got to go back and start in the beginning and listen to the podcast. But Adrienne Laswell, she's 14. She's the founder of a new magazine called Title, and it will be out early next 2026, early in the year. And she'll come back. She'll come back hopefully and tell us about that when that happens. And why this matters now is that we're surrounded by provocative imagery, viral trends, and a culture that's driven by controversy, but we rarely stop to ask why it exists or what it's really trying to express. Adrienne isn't waiting for permission or credentials. She's starting the conversation herself. And that's worth paying attention to, because meaningful change often begins with young voices asking better questions than we do. Adrienne's writing doesn't just react to what's popular. It digs into the meaning, the history, the intent, something that is increasingly necessary in this age of instant judgment. So, Adrienne, I just wanted to thank you once again for being my guest on the show, and thank you for reaching out to me.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, your first radio show, you did excellent. I see many, many more shows to come. So the music in this episode was provided to us by Adrienne, and if you like the soundtrack, it's up on Spotify, and you can listen to that and download that. The Jeremiah Show, the one that you're listening to right now, it airs Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Radio Evolve Rocks in Santa Barbara, California. Tune in, listen more, and evolve. And you can also go to Garden Radio. We're all over the world. We're in a bunch of different countries, and you guys listen to us in a bunch of different countries. But you can go to gardenradio.com, and you can spin the globe, and you can find where we're at and where we're when we're on. Okay, Adrienne Laswell's X handle is one of the best named X handles. Or if you've got a anything, an idea, a story, or a guest, and Osama-san, if you're listening, Adrienne would love to interview you. So get a hold of it, Adrienne Shut Up on Twitter and X. Thank you again, Adrienne.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Communicate, but listen more than you talk, and evolve. Everybody have a great week.